you so much. And it's an honor to be part of this. So I'm a registered dietitian and also, as mentioned, did a documentary and published a book about not only the nutritional contribution of animal source foods, but also the environmental and ethics about what would happen if we eliminated meat from our food system. So next slide, please. So I'm just going to be talking briefly about one piece in particular on the Eat, Land, Set diet, which unfortunately could be the United Nations sort of official diet. So they say, while meat is an important source of key nutrients, including protein, iron, and B12, which are two of the most common nutrient deficiencies worldwide, excess meat consumption can harm our health and the planet. Aim to consume no more than 98 grams of red meat, 203 grams of protein, and 196 grams of fish per week. But yet you can have 31 grams of sugar per day. Next slide. So I calculated this out and into ounces because I don't think in terms of grams. So this really ends up being about the weight of one blueberry's worth of red meat per day. The chicken allowed on this diet would equal about 2 blueberries worth of chicken per day, but yet you can have 62 blueberries worth of sugar per day on the Eat, Land, Set diet. I don't see how this is going to help either malnourished people or people in Western societies that are both overweight and malnourished at the same time. Next slide. So there's a few points that I have to make about Eat, Land, Set, that it's unscientific and elitist. But on the unscientific round, there's no research at all showing a direct cause between red meat and any disease. The most common nutrient deficiencies worldwide are iron and B12. And B12 can only be found in animal source foods, and iron, as we just heard from the previous speaker, is best absorbed from animal sources because it is a heme iron, which the body prefers. Meat is also the best source of any nutrient that you can find in animals or plants. It's always better absorbed from animals. It's also highest in satiety, so it will fill you up. It's lowest in calories for the nutrients we have. So it's the most nutrient dense food that people can be eating. Also most bioavailable. And again, benefits both for obesity and malnourished because it's a source of nutrients. And in many parts of the world where there are little to no access to supplements, or the variety of plants required for this Eat, Land, Set diet, animal source foods are ideal. Next slide. The studies that are being used to vilify meat are observational studies. So they look at one population and they compare it to another population, and it's impossible to prove any kind of cause from an observational study. But another real problem with observational studies is that they're relying on diet recall, which has been proven to be incredibly inaccurate. You might remember how much meat you ate last month, but you are less likely to remember the large soda, the extra large fries, and the deep fried apple pie that you had with that burger. And so it's a very poor way of collecting data on diet from people. Next slide. So is it the meat or what we're eating with the meat? I would say that of all the foods on this, the burger is actually the healthiest thing on this. The actual burger patty here is the best thing. So when they're doing these observational studies, they're looking at a typical vegetarian and comparing them to a typical omnivore. So a typical vegetarian is much more likely to have a healthier lifestyle, to smoke and drink less, to be much more active and less sedentary, and much less likely to eat candy and drink soda. So when you compare a typical vegetarian in the US to a typical omnivore in the US, there are so many lifestyle factors that get in the way, and we call those confounding factors. Next slide. And just because two things are related, it doesn't necessarily mean that they cause each other. And so here I have a graph that looks like consumption of chicken might actually directly cause crude oil imports, right? So this is, of course, ridiculous. And so that's what they're using. Just because people who tend to eat meat also happen to maybe have higher rates of cancer or heart disease, it doesn't mean the meat is what caused the cancer or heart disease. Next. So when they have studied people that shop at health food stores, or when they have also taken large studies and adjusted for all the confounding factors, they've found absolutely no difference at all in longevity between vegetarians and omnivores. And I've cited the 2 studies here, but there are multiple other studies. And so we need to be looking directly at either people who shop at health food stores and adjusting within that population for lifestyle, or looking at these large meta-analyses that adjust for the confounding factors. Next slide. There has been one RCT done on meat versus less meat. It was done in children in Kenya, school children. And the one group got a meat supplement at school, another group got a milk supplement, and another group got an over calories supplement. The meat group, of course, outperformed all of the other groups as far as academic performance, but also physical performance and behavioral scores. And so interestingly, the milk group did the least best. And I'm guessing that because dairy can sometimes, always inhibit iron absorption, that could have been part of it. But meat is, I think it shows that milk is not a proper substitute for meat, and that meat is directly related, of course, to better health outcomes in children. Next slide. And I'm not the only one who says this. This is an article from The Economist showing that in developing countries, when people have more access to meat, the GDP goes up. There's less stunting. There's so many benefits to the global population actually increasing their meat consumption. Next slide. So I'm just going to be showing you the difference nutritionally between beef and beans, so that when we compare 4 ounces of kidney beans to 4 ounces of sirloin steak, we can see that the amino acid profile, so protein is not really what we need. We need to have a variety of amino acids, and animal source proteins have the best variety of amino acids that we need, and not plants. And plus also 4 ounces of steak gives you way more protein than 4 ounces of beans. And not to mention calories as well. So you can get 30 grams of protein in 4 ounces of steak. You would need to eat about 750 calories worth of beans and rice to get the same protein quality that you can get from about 200 calories worth of steak in a much tighter package. You can also see in vitamins, beef wins by far over beans. Next slide. And in minerals as well. A lot of these minerals, again, are very difficult to get from plant-sourced foods. And then on this next slide, on this other piece here on the right, eliminating meat would do more harm than good. These are infographics that I've made because I try to educate the public through my social media on the benefits of meat and the harms of eliminating meat. And this study that was published in PNAS is fantastic at what they did was they modeled a potential diet of no animal source foods in the US. And what they found was overall calorie consumption would actually increase. Carbohydrate consumption would increase. And these are not good things in a population where 70% of our people are already overweight or obese. So we've got, people that are over consuming yet undernourished at the same time. And this would only exacerbate that. So we've got, on the other side, vitamin and mineral deficiencies that we would see, plus fatty acid deficiencies if we pulled animal source foods out of the US diet. And at the same time, global emission or US emissions would only go down 2.6% if we got rid of all livestock sourced foods from our diet. Next slide. Please, next slide. Thank you. All right, so the key takeaways from my presentation: there's no science to prove that meat causes poor health outcomes. The studies vilifying meat are largely correlations and they can't prove cause. Meat is more nutrient dense per serving than plants. Meat contains key nutrients unavailable in plants. Eliminating meat from the diet, sorry, I was blocked there for a second from seeing my slide. Eliminating meat from the diet would lead to overconsumption of calories, carbohydrates, plus increases in nutrient deficiencies. And meat is essential in the success of those living in developing countries with less access to the wide variety of plant-based foods and supplements. So thank you.